Oh, Goofy movie. Yes. All right. We are live on YouTube. Welcome into the show. Live on YouTube and Colorcast. Welcome in, everybody. Glad to have you along. This is the Too Tall Sports podcast show with Too Tall Sports. Your host, Brett Lawrence, former minor league baseball player. And speaking of baseball, I am hyped on the Los Angeles Dodgers tonight. And yes, admittedly, I am a Dodger fan. So I will be talking some Dodgers tonight. And it was just a crazy game overall. I will give you some updates on the Red Sox game because they're in progress right now. Lots of NBA going on tonight. So lots to get to. Definitely some NFL recap. I'll get into that. And if you're watching on YouTube, I am wearing a Dodger hat and a Dodger shirt. So no, I'm not going to hide the fact that I'm a Dodger fan. I think, it's okay. It's how I grew up. So that's what I want to talk about tonight. But I guess some other people will trickle in as we get the show going here. But yeah, that's the rundown. Social media stuff. You can always follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's on Instagram. Twitter is at Too Tall Sports. You can check me out there. I do a weekly podcast every Thursday morning. It'll be released usually at about 5 a.m. for audio. For video on YouTube, it's going to be released around 9 a.m. Pacific time. So just FYI on that. But yeah, so this week I'm going to have a former USC walk-on wide receiver. His name is Chris Kalk. He will be my guest on Thursday. But I got some big episodes coming up after that, so stay tuned for that. And with that, let's get to our agenda today. So like I said, I'm going to be talking some Dodgers to start. Huge ruling in Major League Baseball that is going to be helping minor leaguers with housing. I'm going to go off on that for a little bit. And that's just the start of what should be happening in minor league baseball. And then I'll give you some NFL, talk a little bit of college football. Thank you for the likes. I appreciate it. A little bit of college football, not too much. The only crazy game that happened was Purdue beating Iowa. And, of course, the Big Ten does what the Big Ten does and loses games they shouldn't. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But I'll definitely talk about the biggest teams in the NFL, so I'll get there as well. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I will respond to those when I have a break in the action. So feel free to listen to those. But, yeah, go ahead and leave those in the chat when you get a chance. And I'll respond throughout the Colorcast and the YouTube Live. All right, let's start with some baseball. Get right here for a second. Okay, if you weren't watching the playoffs, I'll tell you what just happened. The Los Angeles Dodgers were down 5-2, and it looked pretty bleak, honestly. It didn't look good. They had Charlie Morton on the ropes, the starter for the Atlanta Braves. Corey Seager hit another 2-run homer in the first inning. That's back-to-back games that he did that. And they were up 2-0, and they had him on the ropes. He almost threw, I think, almost 30 pitches in the first inning, maybe more than that. But he was definitely on the ropes, and the Dodgers didn't capitalize. So all they did was score 2 runs, and that's all they got for a long time until later in the game. And then Morton settled in, and his stuff started to get better. And Walker Buehler, he looked great in the first few innings. And then this is my problem. Gavin Lux is playing center field, and Gavin Lux hasn't played center field that much this year. And there was a ball in the sun that got to the wall in the warning track, and Gavin Lux kind of lost it and it went off his glove. And that started the merry-go-round for the Atlanta Braves. And they started scoring runs, and Walker Buehler was completely off his game, and he couldn't get his stuff back. So that's problem number one I have with Dave Roberts. Now, he has pulled all the right strings for the most part in the playoffs. He did good things with the bullpen in Game 5 against the Giants, which I'm fine with. I'm okay with him bringing Scherzer in at the last inning. He's a different breed. He's a different animal. He can handle that situation. Last year, Julio Urias came out of the pen, and some people might argue he can handle doing that, and he was great for the Dodgers last year. However, this year, Julio Urias won 20 games, okay? He is a full-time starter this year. This is what Dave Roberts used to do to Clayton Kershaw. In between starts, in high leverage moments, high leverage games, he would put Clayton Kershaw in the 7th, 8th, possibly 9th inning, depending on the score, and expect Clayton Kershaw to pitch like a lights out, lockdown reliever. And he's not that. He's a starting pitcher that doesn't have overpowering stuff, that needs 3 quick outs, no time to settle into the game. That's what Dave Roberts used to do to Kershaw, and he got crushed for it. And he absolutely got crushed. And Clayton Kershaw's confidence went down. Say that 3 times fast. Clayton Kershaw's confidence. It went down because he got hit around a little bit. And so I don't like the over management that Dave Roberts does sometimes. Now, I realize some of this is a front office decision. So I'm fine with that. And Dave Roberts is just, I hate to say puppet. I don't like using that term, but he's just the front man, shall we say, for what the Dodgers front office wants to do with the lineup and their pitching rotation. However, I didn't love Urias coming in. He's already been overworked, overused this year, and you're going to force him in there just because he's left-handed in a high leverage 8th inning where we're up by 2. We have lights out bullpen arms. We do not need to put Julio Urias in that situation, but we did, and we paid for it. You don't have time to settle in as a starter in the 8th inning of an NLCS game. I didn't love the move. And I hate how people think lefties can't face right-handed hitters, sorry. Why can't lefties, if you're a starter, you have to face righties at some point during the game? I hate this whole idea where it's only matchups. Sometimes lefties are better against right-handed pitchers. You look at, if you watch the game tonight, Tyler Matzik, he owns righties, and he did tonight again. He's a reliever. I had him on my podcast a couple months ago. It's okay for a lefty to face righties and a righty to face lefties. They had to do it at some point in their career, whether it was high school, college, even little league. You have to face right-handed hitters. So anyway, I didn't like that move by Dave Roberts. I thought it was another over-management move. Also, and I like Dave. He's a nice guy. And thank you, J. Mike, for the comment. Dave is a nice guy from what it seems like on the outside. He's a player's manager. He's not going to go off on people. He seems like a cool guy. But I don't like, for instance, putting Gavin Lux in center. We're down 0-2 in the series, and we're going to put a guy that barely plays center field out there. I don't get it. And we have AJ Pollock on the bench who hasn't been hitting. There's no question there. But he's a natural left or center fielder. And put Chris Taylor, who is a natural center fielder, out there. I don't get the Gavin Lux thing, why we're playing him in the outfield. And then we make a defensive switch to get him out of the game late anyway. He is a liability in center field, not his fault. He's an infielder. So I'm not a fan of some of these moves. We got guys like Joe Kelly. We got Vesia, the lefty. We got Trinan, and we got Gratterall and Kenley, who have all been really good this year. And trust me, I am a Kenley hater till I die, okay? That guy's blown so many saves in so many big moments. He had a great year this year. He figured out his curveball. He figured out a little hitch in his delivery. I am a Kenley Jansen hater. I'm sorry. I just am. Like the guy he's clearly not living up to the money he's making as a closer. However, tonight, Kenley showed up huge. And I guess I skipped ahead in the game a little bit. But if you didn't see, the Dodgers couldn't hit the Braves after the first inning. And then one of their lights out relievers, Luke Jackson, came in and Will Smith led off with a hit. And then somebody else got a hit. And then Bellinger comes up in a 1-2 count and hits an absolute missile for a 3-run homer. And the Dodgers tied it. And then Chris Taylor comes up, gets a base hit right after that. And our most clutch man, who we paid all this money to, instead of paying Manny Machado, we paid Mookie Betts. And we traded away Verdugo for him. And we lost Kike Hernandez probably to clear cap room. We paid the right guy, and that was Mookie Betts. And he came up huge with a double to drive in that run. Dodgers took the lead 6-5, and Kenley Jansen closed the door tonight. This series, honestly, it should be 3-0 Braves. It really should. But I've been saying this. The Braves are not the better team than the Dodgers. The Dodgers are a better team. They had 106 regular season wins for a reason. The Braves were 52-55 on August 2nd. Let that sink in for a second. They lost Ronald Acuna Jr. They were 52-55 at the beginning of August, and they went on an insane run to get there. I made a video about this on my social media today at Too Tall Sports Podcast. You can check it out. The Braves, so they lose Acuna, and then Ozzie Albies, their second baseman, decides to have a career year this year. He had 40 doubles, 30 homers, 20 stolen bases, and I think he had over 100 RBIs. Ozzie Albies went crazy this year. Freddie Freeman started slow, still ended up hitting 300. Austin Riley became an MVP candidate this year. So all these things happen for the Braves in the right way. And now all of a sudden the Braves should be up 3-0, but now we have a series. So I'm glad to see the Dodgers came back at home. It would have been a devastating loss. Again, we had the lead and gave it up. Huge win by the Dodgers. I'm very happy about that game. I don't want to get too excited. It's still 2-1 Braves. We got 2 more to go in LA the next couple days. So we'll see how that goes. Let me know if you guys have any questions on that. And I got a couple comments here from Dodgers. 17 and a half games in front of them, but don't have home field advantage. Great point. It's just the way the cookie crumbles with the divisional seedings. Should we have played the Giants in the first round? No, we should not have. The two best teams shouldn't face each other until at minimum the NLCS. But yeah, the Braves run is insane considering the injuries. Yes, thank you, Jay Mike. I totally agree with you. Like I laid out, they should not be here right now. Same with kind of what the Cardinals did, like had no business being there. But when a team gets hot, especially in the postseason, you can't stop them. So extremely impressive run by the Braves. Hopefully it comes to an end and the Dodgers can go back to Atlanta, hopefully up 3-2 instead of down 3-1 or 3-2. Yeah, hopefully up 3-2 instead of down 3-2. But anyway, yeah, we're looking forward to a huge game tomorrow. I think Urias is on the mound. He looked dead the other day. Scherzer said he's been dead. His arm has been dead. I hope Urias has something left in the tank, because if they're going to have a bullpen day and start some of their relievers and kind of hope they'll take the last 3, the Dodgers have to win another. Every game is a must win from here on out. We can't afford to lose another game. So Dodgers got to win another one tomorrow. And we'll see if they can do that. And if Urias and the bats can wake up tomorrow. So anyways, looking forward to that. I wanted to get to my other big topic of the week, and I'll do a little bit of NFL if I have time. I think I will. But Major League Baseball came down finally with a decision to make Major League clubs pay for minor league baseball player housing. This is a huge deal. A lot of people have been fighting for this. I have had Jeremy Wolf from More Than Baseball, which is a nonprofit organization aiming to help minor leaguers that are struggling because they get paid less than minimum wage. So Major League Baseball is going to make every club pay for minor league housing, which in my opinion should have been done a long time ago. It's the least they could do because, like I mentioned, if you didn't realize what the minor league schedule is like and the life is like, you are paid for 6 months out of a 12-month year. So only when you're in season. If you're not in AAA, there's 4 or 5 levels below AAA, which is the one right below the big leagues if you didn't know. Those guys under AAA are making $12,000 a year, not a season, a year. And even if it was a season and you double it, that's only $24,000 for the year, less than minimum wage. And they're at the field every single day for 10 hours a day doing God knows what, stupid drills and games. And I don't care if people say, hey, you got to play baseball for a living. Yeah, I did. But honestly, your first job in life is making more than what I made as a quote unquote professional baseball player. So for someone to say, oh, you get to play a game for a living, I hate that. We're trying to make it and follow our dream to make it to the big leagues. And we're sold on the idea that you'll make your money when you get up there. No, that is not real life. That is not the odds of making it, even once you get to the minors and you have a good chance, and now you're in the elite of the elite. I mean, it's maybe 20% of the guys in the minors make it to the big leagues. Not a high number at all. So this is the first step for Major League Baseball to help their minor leaguers. They still need better travel accommodations. Usually it's shit buses and shitty hotels. They need better food. You want these players to perform every single night with very few days off. And the food accommodations are terrible. And so More Than Baseball, and I think another organization called Advocates for Minor Leaguers, is trying to change the perspective and change the narrative on how minor leaguers are treated. Getting traded, by the way, sometimes the best case scenario for a minor leaguer if they're going nowhere in their career. I know that firsthand. Anyways, so this is the first step in what I think hopefully is a domino effect of what minor league baseball players should be making salary-wise. Now, what's crazy is you would think the guys right below the big leagues are making good money, right? The guys that are real close. They're not. They're only making $2,000 more. So $14,000 at a minimum or at a maximum for some guys in AAA right below the big leagues. That's all they're making. The caveat is if you get called up to the big leagues, Then you have some service time and your pay scale goes to a higher number. And some guys can make, 70, 80 grand a year, but that's after they get called up that year. So if you don't get called up till September, you don't get paid on that good scale until you get to the big leagues and back down. So the only way to make decent money is get called up, which is very difficult to do. A lot has to go right. If you don't get called up, you're not making that major league pay scale when you come back down. And guys spend their whole career never making it. So that's a huge issue. Let's see. Got a question here. Odds they put them in dump housing. You think they provide quality? I think it's going to be dump housing. Great question. I think it's going to be terrible housing. I think it's going to be the minimal accommodations because baseball's forcing these clubs to do this. I hope it's an apartment situation where maybe they get some owners to agree to. I highly doubt they're going to build a complex for these guys because, as you guys probably know, minor league teams move around a decent amount. They only sign, 5, 10-year leases. So if they're going to build a complex, it could be not for long for these major league clubs in that one town. Now, because everyone has to do it, maybe baseball will agree to hire construction and contractors to build these places regardless of what organization occupies that stadium. Hopefully it's close to the field. Hopefully it's, decent living. And that, there's no security, job security either. Guys can get up and down, all that stuff, but having to not worry about getting off of a lease and buying furniture. And I hope it's furnished. I hope they really help these guys because they deserve a lot better than what they're getting. So, but yeah, huge ruling for Major League Baseball. I'm happy. At least this is a start. Still need better pay and food and travel. But it's a start. So baseball, as you guys know, is the last to move. It's the slowest, whether it's replay, whether it's umpire control of a game or referees or, all rule changes. Baseball is always the last to move on these things because it's a purist sport. Some of it I agree with, but a lot of it is like get with the times, MLB. That's kind of where we're at with that. If you have any questions or thoughts on that, good question from Dodgers 11. Do you think they will be better than Pirate City? I would say no. Pirate City is kind of a unique place. As much as it sucked, it's a cool dorm room with a cafeteria. I would like to see at least that. It's still kind of like jail. I hate to say it, but it's kind of like jail. You got one roommate. It's really small. It's like a hotel. You're living in a hotel room, 2 beds and a bathroom, like just not enough space. But I guess, hey, you get what you get in those kind of accommodations. So for those that don't know, Pirate City is the Pittsburgh Pirates minor league spring training facility that has a dorm style building attached to the facility. And the players can stay there during spring training or extended spring training if you don't make a club out of camp. But it's got a cafeteria, it's got the weight room, it's got everything. That makes sense. I think a lot of the Florida and Arizona clubs should have that available to guys. I doubt it's going to be anything nicer than that. I'm hoping it's more like partnering with apartment complexes and stuff like that. I think that would be interesting. But good questions, though, on that. Let's move on to some football. Now, let me start with the Dallas Cowboys. Most people don't like the Cowboys, and I don't like the Cowboys either. It's really about the fans. It's really not about the players. It's more about the fans. But the Dallas Cowboys are pretty damn good this year. And Dak Prescott is definitely an MVP candidate this year. I saw today he has a calf strain. Luckily, they have a bye this week, which hopefully helps him. But he was on his way to being an MVP candidate. As usual, Mike McCarthy almost blew it at the end when he coached scared and decides to ask his kicker on 4th and 1 to go for a 51-yard field goal, which he totally didn't need to do when you got a high-powered offense like the Cowboys do. But yet you're going to go 4th and 1 from 51 yards instead of handing the ball off to Zeke or letting Dak roll out and hit one of his good receivers. Mike McCarthy is going to, mark my words, hold this team back when they get to the playoffs. I think he is a terrible clock manager. He does what I don't even know what he does because Dak only talks to Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator. Mike McCarthy is not a good coach. I'm sorry. He's just not. And you guys might know I like Aaron Rodgers. He's the best, most talented quarterback I've ever seen. Not the most accomplished, most talented. We don't have to get into that discussion. But anyway, since Aaron Rodgers has been apart from Mike McCarthy, he's 31-7 since Mike McCarthy left Green Bay. Mike McCarthy is a bad coach. I'm just gonna put it plain and simple. He's a bad coach. And Trayvon Diggs, Stephon Diggs' brother, who's got 7 picks in 6 games, which is insane, obviously on his way to being Defensive Player of the Year right now. Trayvon Diggs bailed out Mike McCarthy with that pick six. That was a huge play in the game. And then Dak hit the big bomb to CeeDee Lamb to close it out in overtime. But what a crazy game. But yeah, Mike McCarthy's going to hold this team back. Let me know what you guys think on the Cowboys. Let's see. Aaron Rodgers hinted that Mike is stuck between analytics and instincts. Yeah, I don't think he has any good instincts at all. I think he's probably too analytical, is my guess. He doesn't have feel. He's always been conservative, and Dodgers 11 knows this more than anybody. He coaches scared, and he doesn't even know who he's got on his team, and he doesn't trust his players to be that, to take kind of like already Brandon Staley's doing with Justin Herbert when they go for it a lot on fourth down. Does it always work? No. And trust me, I'll get to them in a second. It did not work this past weekend with the Chargers going to the Ravens. But Mike McCarthy is going to hold this team back. And I feel bad for the Cowboy players because they deserve a better coach. I will say, watching Mac Jones, he looked pretty good for the Patriots, showed a lot of confidence. They have no talent on that team. It's plain and simple. They need help with the Patriots. But Mac Jones looked pretty good, I have to say. Even after that pick six that he had, most guys would be down in the dumps and emotionally shot. Mac Jones came back and threw a touchdown. So that was pretty impressive by him. They just don't have any talent in New England. I want to move on, like I said, to the Ravens against the Chargers. Now, the Ravens, their only loss was that early wacky Monday night game to to Las Vegas Raiders in Vegas when Gruden couldn't figure out the football, the kicker on the offensive unit to come out or the kicker to come out on the field. Anyway, after that whole mess, the Ravens haven't lost a game since then. Lamar Jackson is now really starting to understand his offensive ability, his throwing, his running, all that stuff. Yeah, Mike McCarthy has no instincts at all. Zero. He always makes bad decisions at the end of games. He's a terrible clock manager. You watch if you guys watched that other night. Sorry to get back to this, but when the Manning brothers, Peyton and Eli, and Peyton was yelling at Mike McCarthy, call a timeout, call a timeout. Like, he just doesn't have the wherewithal. He's oblivious sometimes to the situations. So very unimpressed with Mike McCarthy, I'll tell you that. Okay, back to the Ravens. Lamar Jackson looks great. But Brandon Staley, look, this is a tough game for the Chargers. Most people know that, or if you don't think about this, it's a West Coast team going to play a 1 o'clock East Coast game, which body clock wise for Pacific time is 10 a.m. You're just really not ready to play. So that's probably what happened to the Chargers. They got caught up against a team that's really good running the ball, and the Chargers are terrible against the run. So they got caught against a good Ravens team. And Brandon Staley failed twice to go for it on fourth down in their own territory, which, hey, you can be bold. Sometimes it doesn't go your way, though. And it resulted in 2 possessions of Baltimore points, putting the defense in a tough spot backed up against their own end zone. So usually it works to go for it on fourth down. And if you trust your guys, that's a good message to the locker room. But sometimes you don't have to go for it on your own 10 every single time. So anyway, I think Brandon Staley will have to figure that out as the season goes along. Vikings had a very dramatic win in overtime against Carolina. That was pretty cool. Great finish. Kirk Cousins has been much better than people are giving him credit for, just because they've lost a couple games. But Cousins looks pretty damn good, man. He's not throwing it to the other team as much anymore. As long as Dalvin Cook is healthy, that Vikings team looks pretty good when they're all right. And that was a big win against all of a sudden struggling Carolina Panthers. They started 3-0. Looking like a very fraudulent 3-0 at this point. Sam Darnold was 17 of 41 for 207 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. He's taking a step back in the moment after a really hot start. I think maybe now the loss of Christian McCaffrey is starting to hurt them, even though Chuba Hubbard's been great, the fill-in running back. But Sam Darnold definitely going the wrong way at this point in the season. Maybe he's not as good as we thought he was. He's probably a little better than we thought coming out of New York with the Jets, but he's going the wrong way, and he likes to throw it to the other team. But 17 of 41, that's really bad. So Sam Darnold, not impressive. And I will try. I might have to play him in fantasy this week. I don't want to, but I might have to against a really bad New York Giants team that the Rams made look terrible this weekend. A couple more I want to get in here. The Miami Dolphins, what happened to them? Talk about biggest surprises that you thought would probably be a playoff team this year. I don't know what's going on with Miami. I'm not a believer in Tua. I never have been from the beginning. He's too small, not big enough arm. He's accurate, but that windup takes a long time to throw. I'm not a Tua believer. Brian Flores had this team believing last year, and they overachieved last year. But they're 1-5 now, and they just lost to Urban Meyer. I mean, I know it was a game in London, but my God, Urban Meyer is not a good NFL coach. I know Jacksonville doesn't have a ton of talent, but they got enough down there. So to be the first coach to lose to Urban Meyer, I don't know. Miami's going in the wrong direction. They're going to have to be active at the trade deadline. And thank you, Dodgers 11. Darnold has no instincts. I agree. He's probably a little, like I said, a little better than we all thought, but probably not as good as we all thought. He's somewhere in that bottom half of the league right now. I mean, I know he had a bunch of rushing touchdowns, but I don't know. Darnold doesn't look too good. Kansas City's back on track. Still too many turnovers. That's 5 straight games for Patrick Mahomes with an interception. Not a great way of running the offense right now. They're giving up a lot of points. Mahomes is kind of taking too many chances right now and a lot of ill-advised throws. But Kansas City, they were down early, and then they absolutely smoked after that. So I think Kansas City's back on track. Patrick Mahomes just has to clean up a couple things, but they look fine to me. Arizona's really good. The Cardinals are really good. And I know that the Browns are banged up at running back with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, but the Cardinals probably should have won 37-7. The Browns had a Hail Mary at the end of the first half, so that gave them 14. But honestly, this wasn't close. Arizona's on a different mission this year, and I really like what the Cardinals are doing. Kyler Murray's got to be the favorite, especially with their undefeated 6-0 season so far. After Kyler, I would go with Dak and then Josh Allen, most likely, for MVP candidates in that order. Who do I think wins the AFC West? That's a great call. Oh, man. I think I love the way the Chargers are playing, except for last week. And I know that, they've been good. And their only losses are to two really good teams, Dallas and Baltimore. So I still think Kansas City gets on a roll here. I just do. I don't know. They're going to get right. I still think Kansas City gets right. The Raiders are still in the mix. They just, in my opinion, the Raiders don't have the talent. They just don't. I mean, Garrett Carr looks great. Getting rid of Gruden might mentally free him up a little bit. I just don't think they have the horses to compete with these other two teams when they play each other. So we'll see how they do as far as Oakland goes. When we get later in the season, I keep saying Oakland. I'm sorry, Las Vegas. When we get later in the season, I still think Kansas City runs away with this thing. Somehow they will. Last thing I want to mention was going to be college football. So Purdue had a big win against Iowa, of course. Another Big Ten team losing a game they shouldn't. Now, you could say the Pac-12 does this too, and they always do this. The Pac-12, that usually the leader in the Pac-12, North or South, will lose a game to someone bad. It always happens. But the Big Ten is usually overrated, and they are again this year. I know they have a lot of teams in the top 10. I understand that, but they don't usually live up to the hype of what they really are. And if we're being honest, Iowa's not beating. I don't think anybody, including Iowa, are beating Georgia or Alabama. I still think Cincinnati isn't as good as we say, even though they're saying that quarterback is going to be a top pick this year. We'll see. But again, Alabama now sneaks in the top 4. So you got Georgia, you got Cincinnati, Ohio State, Alabama. I don't love the fact that Alabama's back in it again, of course. Like, they're just going to sneak their way back in the top 25. But I'm sorry, not Ohio State. It's Oklahoma. It's Georgia, Cincinnati, Oklahoma, Alabama. I wanted to look that up. Ohio State is 5, Michigan 6, Penn State at 7 with their banged-up quarterback situation. OK State is 6-0, Oklahoma State. Michigan State 7-0, and Oregon now 5-1. Iowa at number 11 at 6-1. No one's going to beat Georgia. I would like to see them go all the way. Cincinnati, let me check their schedule real quick. Cincinnati only has to play SMU down the stretch, who's ranked at 21, but really no tests at all. Like we mentioned a couple weeks ago, they beat Notre Dame, overrated Notre Dame, who's basically a Big Ten team the way they play. I'm not a believer in Cincinnati. They're not going to have any tests. They're going to get bounced by somebody in the top 4. Alabama still has to play LSU, New Mexico State, Arkansas, and Auburn, of course, to finish the year. They will play Tennessee this weekend. But Alabama probably gets in and stays in the top 4. Cincinnati, like I mentioned, has a weak schedule. Oklahoma's schedule, they have to play Baylor and Oklahoma State, two ranked teams. That's going to be tough. Oklahoma could definitely fall to Oklahoma State at the end of the year, so they might drop out of the top four. We'll see. Georgia's remaining schedule, they don't have any ranked games on the schedule. However, Georgia probably has a tough game. It's always a tough game, kind of a rivalry with Florida. But then they go Missouri, Tennessee, Charleston, Southern, and Georgia Tech. So Georgia's gotten through the gauntlet fairly easily. They've won every game by double digits except Clemson early in the year, but they've blown everybody out. And their last 3 wins are against ranked opponents. Arkansas was number 8, Auburn was number 18, and Kentucky was number 11. So they've taken care of business against literally everyone. So don't see any issues there for Georgia. And they will probably meet Alabama in the SEC championship game. Let's see. We got a comment. You just way undersold the UF Georgia rivalry. That hurt. Really? Well, let's see if Florida can make it into a real rivalry, because I think lately Georgia's got their number. I'm not sure on how many wins back and forth they have, but and yes, big win for Purdue. That messed up Iowa big time. I know I'm not in that area, the Florida Georgia area, so maybe they'll be towing that Florida Georgia line. You know what I'm saying? We'll see how they do it in the South down there, but I don't think Georgia loses this game. Do you think Georgia loses this game? I don't think so. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Georgia doesn't have a test till the SEC championship. So, and Florida, I don't see. I hate to bring this name up because I'm tired of talking about him, but I don't see Tim Tebow walking through that door. And even if he did, he still couldn't throw anyway. So I don't see anything happening there. But I know we got a Tebow fan in here. That's why I mentioned that. But I did call out the Vikings, so you should be happy about that one, Dodgers 11. What else do we got? Anything else you guys want me to hit on before we get out of here? I only need 2 more likes to get to 100. If you guys, each of you, 1 more like, that'd be awesome. I can knock that out very quickly here so we can move forward. I just need one of you to hit the like button twice. One more like. Yeah. There we go. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. All right. What do the Dodgers do with Bellinger in the offseason? You're putting me in a very tough spot right now because of the prisoner of the moment recency bias that some of us will probably have. He's been great this postseason. I can't personally forget about hitting 160 for the entire year. I'm not sure how all of a sudden he had a haircut and now he can hit. He can see now. I don't know if he's staying off the weed now. I'm not sure what it is, but for some reason, Cody Bellinger is hitting right now, and I don't get it. Usually you face better pitching with better teams in the playoffs, and Cody Bellinger now is back to his MVP ways. I don't get it. I still don't want to pay him. I know they probably will. I'd personally rather keep Seager. I think he's more valuable, way more consistent. I would like to keep Seager if possible if we lose Bellinger. I personally would be okay with that, although right now Bellinger is, other than Mookie, our hottest hitter. So I don't have the correct answer. However, I can't forget about him just completely nosediving this year and putting us in a tough spot. So what do you think? Should we hang on to Bellinger and pay him? At this moment, I say no. I guess we'll have to see what he does if we move on. But at the moment, I can't say that I would pay Bellinger at this point. But yeah, good question, though. I know that's going to be a big discussion in the offseason. We got a lot of guys to figure out for the Dodgers. You got Trey Turner. You got guys like Justin Turner. I don't know if he's going to be locked in for much longer, but just a real tough situation right now with the Dodgers and who they have to pay. Luckily, they have young guys. I'm okay with letting Gavin Lux go, personally. I think we can do without. Now that we got Trey Turner, I think we can let Lux go. I don't want him in the outfield. I want Taylor in center or Bellinger in center. We get Muncy back. So I don't think we need Lux or Bellinger, but I'd rather have Bellinger than Lux if we had to let a guy go. So, but anyways, if no more questions, that's probably going to wrap it up here for my Colorcast and YouTube live show. Thank you for joining me tonight. Podcast comes out on Thursday morning, Too Tall Sports Podcast. I appreciate you guys being here, and I will see you next week, 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you very much. J-Mike, I just answered that, I think, so I appreciate it. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you.